All right, so if you're just joining us, let me just say that I'm delighted to be with you. My name is Allison Meredith, and I am the mother of 7 kids, I'm happy to say. I also work professionally. So I thought that during this crazy time when we are, many of us are unexpectedly having to figure out how to manage our kids at home and also try to find a little bit of time to get some work done ourselves, I just wanted to share with you some tips. So today, the tips are 3 things: creating a reasonable schedule, communicating through signs and lists, and I try to share a practical tip. Today's tip is going to be about how to manage having a quiet time schedule with your kids. When you are creating a reasonable schedule, you have to have that growth mindset that we talked about yesterday. If you missed that, I hope you'll go back and watch the first video in this series where I talked more about that growth mindset. But you basically need to own that you're not going to get it right the first time, and you need to just accept that. It's going to be a bit of a journey. With this too, I also want to say, guys, you have to be flexible with your schedule. You drive your schedule. Your schedule doesn't drive you. So you've all heard, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail, right? That's completely true. But when you're thinking about scheduling, you also need to remember that you don't plan because the plan somehow enables you to dictate life and prevent chaos. No, you plan because then when the chaos happens, you have a plan to look at. And you can say, okay, I planned this, wait, this happened instead, so now I can make adjustments. So you're not just making everything up on the fly. So you make your plan because why? Because that helps you cope with the unexpected things. Your plan is not a failure if it doesn't always happen that way. That's not the purpose of the plan, to dictate reality, because we can't do that. Wouldn't it be great if we could? If we could have all planned to dictate reality, we wouldn't all be self-quarantining, right? All right, so let's get back to my slideshow here. Yesterday, I spoke about the importance of valuing your kids' great ideas, both because they actually do have some great ideas that you've not thought of, also because they need to have ownership of this new schedule that you're going to be trying to implement. So don't skip this step. Ask your kids, have a brainstorming session with your kids. Just write it all on the whiteboard. If you don't have a whiteboard, hand out a bunch of blank scrap paper and say, everybody write down, what do you like to do with your time? We need to come up with a schedule. Give me your ideas. Incorporating those ideas, you're going to find some essentials that I think we could all name. You're going to need to do some chores every day. That's probably going to happen multiple times throughout the day. There's going to be some group lessons with your kids' academic work, and then there's going to be some independent lessons. There's activities that your kids like to have. I hope you're going to have some outside time with or without your kids, depending on their age. Of course, you might need to be more involved in monitoring and helping them outside. But these are just some starting points. And then what I'm recommending that you do is that you think of your day in blocks. Let me just caveat this with a story. When I was a young mom with a house full of kids, now my 5th kid showed up before my oldest was 7. My 7th kid showed up before my oldest was 12. So I had 7 kids born within 12 years. That's really close together. Yes, I did have some outside help sometimes for certain. In fact, I still do sometimes. So I am not Wonder Woman, but I have learned to just manage and delegate and be reasonable. And so my funny story is that when I had that house full of really young kids, I got a book by this mom, and she had used Excel to make this really complicated schedule of 30-minute segments, and every kid was a column in Excel, and every row was a 30-minute time segment. Man, I spent hours. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And what was the result? I planned this perfect looking day that never happened, ever. Okay? So every day I felt like a failure. Don't do that. Don't do that. You need a reasonable schedule that is just, we're going to have, let me just say how it works at the Meredith House. At the Meredith House, everybody gets up and makes their own breakfast. You have several choices, cereal, oatmeal, a granola bar, you have some choices. If somebody wants to cook eggs, that's fine. They have to clean up their own mess. Excuse me just a minute. So what I'm trying to say, I'm sorry, I just got distracted. This is a live webinar, so you got to be patient with me. The thing is, when you're doing a schedule with your kids, you cannot, I'm sorry, just be patient. I totally got thrown. Somebody just gave me a note, but there's nothing wrong. So let's get back to my story, which was you cannot expect perfection. Okay. So I was telling you about the Meredith house. At the Meredith house, we make our own breakfast, and then around 9 o'clock, and it's not always 9, sometimes it's 8:45, sometimes it's 9:15. But we start and we have a Bible time. It's a very simple routine, which I'm not going to get into the details here, but that's just our family morning gathering. I'm happy to tell you more at another time. But so we do that from about 9 to about 9:20. And then we have either some certain times where the kids are meeting with me, or we might have independent lessons, but there's a schedule of this is what we want to accomplish between Bible time and lunch. And then this is what we want to accomplish after lunch before screen time. And then we have some screen time later in the afternoon, and then dinner. I've had some questions about people trying to do an atypical schedule. What if you have to work professionally all day, and then you need to do help the kids with their lessons at night? You can figure that out. I mean, I can't give you a secret sauce for that, but I can tell you can figure it out. You can absolutely figure it out. So with that, I think the big idea is just that you need to have a reasonable expectation of this is what we're going to get done. And right here, I wrote, what is done right after that? I think for us, that's really worked. We always have Deer's time right after Bible time. So I think you can have a schedule that you've got some kind of morning meeting, whether it's Bible time or whatever your thing is. And then right after that, you do something else. And then right after that, we actually have 2 or 3 things we usually do, boom, 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 right after our Bible time. And then it's a little bit of a free-for-all, but everybody kind of knows generally what's expected. All right, so if you have questions, again, just post those below, and I'd be happy to address those at the end or as we go along. The next thing I want to emphasize as you're making this schedule is that you've got to communicate clearly through signs and lists. So with that, let me just show you a couple of examples of things here at the Meredith house. All right, so here is an example schedule from, this was April of 2019. And I've listed out here some chores that I want them to do and some lessons that I want them to do. And so when they check that off, and there's a special place in the house, this is taped up every day, it's going to look something like this. It's going to be messy. Mom might scratch stuff out. I might, I thought I took a stack of these, but they get thrown away at the end of every day. So I really kind of had to dig to find this one. But this schedule is only going to work if a couple things. Your kids have to have ownership and give input. I've already emphasized that, right? The second thing is you have to communicate the schedule to your kids in written form. It needs to be posted somewhere. Now, something like this is obviously not the whole schedule, right? This is just, let me share that screen again so you can see it more clearly. Something like this is just an expectation of what you want them to get done academically. Sometimes I'll write some chores on here. We'll talk more about chores tomorrow, but I'm talking about communicating your expectations of what you want to get done during that academic lesson time. Now, I know a lot of you are managing lessons from your school. Your school is trying to do or is doing distance learning. That's great. It would still be helpful to your kids, even if the list here, it might just say, whatever Mrs. Smith emailed you. Okay, whatever, but break it down for them and help them have this checklist. Now, here was a day we had abbreviated lessons, and down here it says, afternoon fun at the Hensley house, finish your lessons so you can just go play and have a great time when we get there. So I like this format because I've got just obviously a template on my computer, and I just resave it every day and update it. I can take stuff out, I can mark it out. I have a day that's just blank like this, so that I can just print a blank page out, and then I physically mark out stuff or circle stuff and adapt it to fit that day. All right, so communicating clearly through signs and lists. Here's what the big idea is on this issue. You do not want the kids to have to be remembering what you said. And if you're like me, you don't want to have to remember what you said. I mean, in the Meredith house, I'm infamous for kind of thinking about a lot of things, and then I'll say it, and it's not quite what I was thinking. You know, most people are like that. Our kids are like that. Most of us don't exactly say what we mean, and we don't exactly mean what we say, and not because we're lying, but just because we're busy. There's a lot on our mind, and it's hard to communicate clearly. So have written signs, and I mean, just a sign that just says, you know, Bible time is at 9 o'clock, be there, be square. Okay, deer's time next, and then whatever it is. And you know, just whatever it is, write it down, get your kids to get involved, and then tape it on the wall. Write it on the board, write it on the whiteboard, or tape it on the wall on plain paper. All right, I think I've beat that horse enough. So let's get into the third thing that I just want to share with you today is the secret sauce of having quiet time. So with quiet time, I have done this for years and it works great. It is an hour. In our house, it's usually right after lunch, and everybody's in a different place. Just like I shared yesterday with deer's time, if they start making noise during quiet time, guess what you get to do? You get to go add a minute to that timer. Do you remember when I said that yesterday? You get to do it for this too. The kids will figure out pretty quickly that you're serious. You need this hour to get your work done. All right, so with quiet time, here's a few little tricks. I mentioned yesterday about these concentration enhancers, right? They're really goofy, but I'll bet you have some in your garage, and it's a special treat when your kids are like, I'm gonna go wear those, this is my quiet time. Another key part of quiet time is to make the toys special. So maybe you're thinking, oh, my kid he doesn't have any special toys. Yeah, he does. He just doesn't know he does. So what you need to do is take that brainstorming session that you had a couple days ago, and you've asked him, right? You've asked him, what are his favorite activities? What are his favorite toys? Maybe some of his favorite toys have been accessible every day. You just get to go put them in a different closet, all right? They're going to become quiet time toys, and they are only accessible during quiet time. And there can be a rotating schedule. I always had multiple kids during quiet time, and so we would rotate quiet time locations, and we would rotate quiet time chores. Here's some example of some quiet time toys. I'll bet you have in your house a baking sheet, and I'll bet you have, if you're an American, right? We call it the curse of being American. You have too much stuff. If you're an American, I'll bet you have some version of this, right? This is our magnet. This is our magnet toys. Magnets are a great quiet time activity, and this baking sheet is just a great way to let them sit in a corner between two pieces of living room furniture, and these things can roll around and not get lost. And when they're done, they just pour them back in the container. You know, pick just whatever toys you have at your house. Here's my bucket of Lego Duplos, right? I mean, again, curse of being American, your kids probably don't think this is special at all, right? Just a bunch of Lego Duplo. Who cares? They're going to care more if you put them in a closet and don't get them out except for quiet time. And then Johnny gets them on Monday, and Christy can have them on Tuesday, and Susie can have them on Wednesday, or whatever it is. But if you'll mix up which kids get which toys, that's not hard. You just make a little schedule. It adds value. It makes them value the toys more, and it enables you to have some quiet time and get some of your work done. So again, with all this today, I'm just trying to give you some easy to implement ideas for just succeeding. So yesterday we talked about these tips: getting your mindset right, leveraging your kids' great ideas, and we talked about deer's time. If you didn't get to see that, go back and watch that video. And then today, I just wanted to focus on how do you create a reasonable schedule that provides that essential structure. Your kids need structure. They need predictability. But you don't want to have it so structured that you're just looking at the schedule feeling like a failure every day, okay? So make it reasonable. You've got to communicate through signs and lists posted so that your kids are not always, well, I heard mom say this. No, I heard her say that. What did mom really say? And then they got to come ask you, no, you don't want that. You want it posted. and then some information there about how to make quiet time a success at your house. All right, so we're right at the 2:16 mark, and I promised you I'd only keep you 20 minutes. So with that, I'm just going to see if we have any questions about all this. And let me look. If you have questions, type them into the Q&A or type them into the chat. And Sylvia, I believe, is monitoring Facebook, so I can't see the Facebook, but hopefully she will holler at me if there's a Facebook question. All right, so hearing none, I've got a good group showing up today. They're just a little bit quiet. That's fine. I want to just leave you with these encouraging thoughts. Your kids need you. They need to know that you love them and that you're that you're willing to try new strategies to make this work. So just huddle them up and say, okay, kids, I need to get some more ideas brainstormed for this schedule, and then just say, hey, we're going to do this. I need you on tell them you need them on your team. And so the 3 tips for today were that magic quiet time and some tips of making that work. The importance of posting whatever schedule you're doing, whatever expectations you have, post that up, make it a valid third-party source, not just mom's brain. And then I've just had a question. We'll have to pause on that final summary. This question says, I am working with a bunch of teachers who are struggling to implement distance learning for their students while caring for their own children. Any ideas for my friend who has a 5th grader doing her own online learning and also twin toddlers who need care while she's teaching? Yeah, that's a tricky one. You know what? I'm going to have to think about that one. I don't have any quick answers. So, I mean, how do you do any kind of remote work, whether you're trying to be a 5th grade teacher or an assistant to a CPA or whatever, and you've got twin toddlers and a 5th grader in the house trying to do their own remote work or occupy themselves? We had another person reply and say, DEERS, that's true. You can do DEERS 4 hours. You can. That is a great short-term solution. It might become a long-term solution. Guys, I think we just all have to say it's plan B. We're all in plan B. So let's just put our heads together and figure this out. I invite other people to contribute ideas. And I am just sharing what I've had work for. I was a full-time homeschool mom for 12 years. For the past 8 years, I had been working, and I've actually I've paid some tutors to teach my kids when I couldn't be here teaching them. But there have been many days when I've been trying to juggle a lot of things. So I don't claim to have everything figured out for this particular situation, but I'm just trying to share some high-level thinking strategies and tools you can use to help you think of your own ideas, right? Because at the end of it, I can't, there's just so many variables. I'm not sure that I can bring clarity to every problem, but yeah, but I'd say start with DEERS and start with that team meeting, and I'll keep thinking and we'll see if we can come up with some more ideas. All right, we've got 2 more comments and we're not quite at the 2:20 mark. But I think those are just general comments. So if you're watching this after the live event, you can still post your questions and comments. I'm planning tomorrow to talk more about how to manage chores. And then on Thursday and Friday, there's several different things I can do. I can talk about curriculum ideas. If y'all are interested in that, I can talk about, I can do more of a deep dive into how to do chores or how to do quiet time or just anything I've talked about so far. It's been a very high level view. So I'm just happy to help those of you that perhaps some of my life experience can help. It's a crazy time, right? It's a crazy time. Let's just all try to pay it forward and help first, as the sayings go. All right, so I will post those slides up and just feel free to email me if you've got further questions. And with that, I will sign off. Thanks for coming.